There's something strange we've all experienced, yet rarely dare to face. Most of the exhaustion, pressure, and suffering in life doesn't come from circumstances themselves. It comes from how tightly we cling to everything. We try to control every outcome, hold on to relationships that have already changed, worry about a future that hasn't arrived, and then wonder why we still feel uneasy and drained. The truth is, the tighter we grip, the more we lose. The more we try to hold on, the more life slips through our fingers, like sand escaping through a closed fist. The Buddha taught that letting go is not giving up, and it's not indifference. Letting go means ending the invisible war with what we cannot control. It's the lightness that comes when you finally see life continues. And sometimes, the moment you stop interfering is the moment everything begins to fall into its right place. And on this journey today, we'll explore some profound lessons so that you can see for yourself. When you truly release your grip, peace finally has a chance to touch your heart. 1. The mindset of letting go. There's an old Zen proverb, short yet piercing like an arrow to the heart. Let go or be dragged. It sounds simple, but we've all been through seasons when we simply couldn't let go. You know the feeling when something has run its course, no longer fits, but you grit your teeth and hold on anyway. A relationship that's lost its original connection, but you cling to it out of fear of loneliness. A job that drains your energy and joy, but you stay because it feels safe, or painful memories that should be left in peace, but you revisit them over and over, almost as a habit. And then you realize the more you hold on, the more you're dragged along. Like gripping a rope being pulled hard, the tighter you squeeze, the more your hands tear and bleed. The pain isn't just in your skin, it's deep inside. Holding on doesn't make you safer. It only makes you more exhausted. The truth is, life doesn't stand still for us to control. Everything is in motion. Seasons change, rivers shift, people evolve. When you try to freeze something in place, you're fighting against a law of nature, and that's a battle you cannot win. You might win for a day, but you'll lose for a lifetime. The hard part isn't understanding that letting go is necessary. We all know that. The hard part is daring to do it. Because to let go, you have to face fear. Fear of emptiness. Fear of loss. Fear that there will be nothing left to hold on to. But if you look closely, you'll see it's not the emptiness that wears you down. It's the dragging. Imagine crossing a rushing river. You cling to a boulder in the middle of the current. At first it feels safe, but the water keeps pushing. The wind keeps blowing. Your body grows tired. Your hands slip. The longer you hold on, the colder and weaker you become, until even the boulder can't save you. But if you release at the right moment and let the water carry you, you might discover a quiet sandy shore just around the bend. Letting go is not giving up. It's not abandoning everything and waiting for fate to decide. Letting go is releasing what no longer serves your peace or your growth. It's acknowledging that some things have fulfilled their role in your life, and the rest of your journey doesn't require them anymore. You might ask, if I let go, what will happen to me? No one can give you an exact answer, but the real question is, if I don't let go, how far will I be dragged? Sometimes, the scary thing isn't the new road, it's staying too long on one that's no longer yours. Letting go requires trust. Trust that you can stand without leaning on what's hurting you. Trust that life can reorganize itself when you stop playing the controller and start becoming the observer. Trust that the emptiness you fear is actually the space for something new to arrive. But trust doesn't appear overnight. It grows in small steps. Start by loosening your grip a little. Stop trying to control every detail. Allow a pause to exist. See what happens when you don't react immediately. Little by little, you realize not everything falls apart when you let go. In fact, some things start falling into place not according to your plan, but in a more natural, harmonious way. Those who've walked through the deep practice of letting go often say the same thing. It was one of the most liberating decisions of their lives. Not because they stopped losing things, but because they stopped dragging themselves through what had already expired. So, if you feel trapped in a situation, a memory, or a fear, ask yourself, am I steering or am I being dragged? And if the answer is being dragged, maybe it's time to loosen your hands, not to lose everything, but to find yourself again, the self that's been there all along, hidden under everything you've been gripping so tightly. Because you see, sometimes only when you put it down can you walk lightly. And only when you're no longer being dragged can you finally see the road ahead clearly. 2. The power of true presence. There's a strange paradox most of us live with, but rarely notice. We spend nearly our whole lives searching for happiness somewhere out there, all the while forgetting the treasure that's right here, our ability to be fully present with ourselves. Think about it. How many times have you been in a moment, yet your mind was somewhere else entirely? You're sitting at dinner with your family, but your thoughts are tangled in work deadlines. You're walking through a beautiful afternoon, but inside you're still replaying an old argument. You're lying in bed, meant to be resting, but your mind is already racing through tomorrow's plans. And then we wonder, why don't I feel happy? The truth is, happiness has never actually left us. We're just not here to notice it. Presence isn't some luxury skill reserved for the enlightened or the leisurely. It is the very heartbeat of a meaningful life. When you are present, you see more clearly, feel more deeply, and connect more truly with what is happening, instead of rushing through life like a traveler skimming past each rest stop. But true presence doesn't come from forcing yourself to stay here. It happens when you release the habit of constantly running back to the past or leaping ahead to the future. When you stop digging through what should have been and stop constructing what must come next, you finally set foot in the only place life ever happens, the present moment. Imagine holding a cup of hot tea. If you drink it while answering emails, you'll barely notice its fragrance or the gentle warmth spreading through you. But if you set your phone down, close your eyes, and take a slow sip, you're fully in that moment. Such a small act, and yet it's a pure kind of happiness. In Buddhism, presence is not only about enjoying the moment, but about freeing yourself from the prison of the restless mind. When you are here right now, old stories lose their weight, and future worries lose their grip. You're no longer ruled by what hasn't happened or what has already passed. You return to the only thing that's real this moment. And the beautiful part is when you live with presence. The smallest things become precious. The sound of someone you love laughing, morning light spilling through a window, the feeling of your bare feet touching the earth. Without presence, these moments slip past unnoticed like they never happened. Some might say, I want to be present, but my mind keeps wandering. Of course it does. The mind loves to wander. But every time you notice you've drifted away and you gently guide yourself back, that's a victory. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to return over and over, like calling a lost child back home. Presence doesn't demand that you overhaul your entire life in one day. It starts small. When you eat, just eat. When you listen, just listen. When you hug someone, just hug without thinking about the next thing. Over time, you'll find that you're not just connecting to the moment, you're reconnecting to yourself. And when you're truly present, happiness stops being a distant goal and becomes a living, breathing experience in every breath you take. You no longer wait for a grand event to bring you joy, because joy has quietly been here all along, in the simplest, most ordinary things. Maybe what you've been searching for all these years isn't a perfect life, but a mind that knows how to pause and live in the one you already have. Because happiness isn't waiting for you in tomorrow, nor does it hide in yesterday's memories. It's here now, gently asking you to step in. If only you'll stop and truly arrive. 3. You are not your thoughts. Some days, it takes just one small thought to weigh your entire day down. A casual comment from someone, an old memory resurfacing out of nowhere, a gloomy prediction about the future. And before you know it, your mind begins to spiral. You believe the thought. You live as if it's the absolute truth. But have you ever paused and asked yourself, is this real? Or is it just a thought passing through? In Buddhist teaching, the mind is often compared to the sky, and thoughts are like clouds. Clouds can be dark and heavy, or bright and beautiful. They can block your view or create breathtaking shapes. But clouds are never the sky. The sky is still there, vast, still untouched, no matter what clouds pass through. The problem is, we've gotten used to identifying ourselves with the clouds. When dark clouds roll in, we think we have turned dark. When the sky is thick with storm clouds, we think our entire world is collapsing. We forget that behind it all, the sky, our true nature, has never been harmed. You are not the voice in your head that keeps repeating, I'm not good enough. I'm going to fail. They don't like me. You are the one hearing those words. You are the space in which those thoughts appear and fade away. Think back to the last time you were consumed by something, maybe an argument, a worry, a regret, and then weeks later, it didn't matter anymore. What happened? The thought passed. It didn't stay forever. No cloud ever clings to the sky for a lifetime. But when you believe every thought is the ultimate truth, you get swept away. Like a traveler lost in fog, you see only a few steps ahead and then fill in the rest of the story with fear or assumption. Freedom doesn't come from defeating your thoughts. It comes from recognizing their nature. When a thought arises, you can simply name it. This is a thought. It's not me. That one simple sentence creates a space, a gentle distance between you and your mind. This doesn't mean you ignore every thought. Some carry useful messages, like clouds that hint at rain, so you can prepare. But most are just habits of the mind, old loops, learned reactions from the past. They don't define who you are. When you realize you are the sky, you stop fearing the dark clouds. You know they will pass. You stop clinging to the white clouds because you know they will pass too. You begin to live more lightly, no longer being lifted up or dragged down by each passing thought. At first, this can feel difficult. The mind has been leading you for so long, pulling you into every story it creates. But like any skill, learning to step back from your thoughts can be trained. Through meditation, mindfulness, or simply pausing in the middle of your day to remind yourself, I am observing, not being pulled in. And something beautiful happens. When you stop chasing every cloud, your sky feels wider. There's more light. There's space to breathe, to choose your response instead of reacting on autopilot. You start to understand that peace doesn't mean a sky with no clouds. It means knowing that clouds are only clouds. Maybe right now, you have a thick cloud hanging inside you, a worry, a regret, an unfinished story. Try sitting quietly, breathing slowly, and picturing it drifting across your sky. You don't have to push it away, and you don't have to hold on. Let it pass, and you'll see the sky was never gone. Because in the end, you were never born to be a prisoner of your thoughts. You were born to be the sky, vast, still, and spacious enough to hold everything without being defined by any cloud that passes through. 4. The whatever mindset, the power of acceptance. There's a quiet strength that many people misunderstand. They call it apathy, detachment, or not caring about life. But in Buddhism, it's not neglect. It's a deep, steady acceptance. I like to call it the whatever mindset, or no matter what happens, I remain at peace. At first, it might sound like resignation. Whatever happens, happens. But in truth, it's nothing like giving up. Resignation comes from despair. The true whatever mindset comes from trust. Trust in the flow of cause and effect. Trust that you can stand firm even when everything around you changes. Think about it. How many times in life have you tried to control everything? Planning every step, worrying about every possibility, preparing for every outcome, only to watch things still unfold differently than you wanted. And when that happens, what do you usually do? Get angry. Blame yourself. Blame others. Or scramble to pull everything back into your perfect plan. There's another way. Not giving up, but loosening your need to control. When you accept that life will always be unpredictable, you stop thrashing in every unexpected wave. You become the mountain that wind and rain pass over instead of the leaf tossed around in the storm. The whatever mindset doesn't mean I don't care. It means I won't let the outcome steal my inner peace. It's the ability to smile when plans change, when the unwanted arrives, and say, all right, I'll start from here. Imagine you're rowing a boat down a river. Some stretches are calm, some are rocky, and sometimes the current suddenly shifts. If you insist on rowing against the flow, you'll exhaust yourself. But if you know when to let the current carry you, you not only save your strength, you discover beautiful places you never knew existed. The power of whatever lies in its ability to pull you out of knee-jerk reactions. Someone says something hurtful, you don't instantly lash back. A plan falls apart. You don't instantly panic. You create a pause to observe before you choose your response. And that pause is where wisdom and peace take root. Many fear acceptance, thinking it makes them weak or easy to take advantage of. But in truth, only when you're steady inside can you accept without losing yourself. The whatever mindset doesn't make you passive, it makes you stronger because you're no longer controlled by life's uncertainty. And here's the interesting thing. When you stop forcing, life often flows more smoothly. Opportunities appear when you're not chasing them. People connect with you when you're not trying to control them. It's like holding sand in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the more slips away. Loosen your grip, and more stays with you. So, next time something veers off course, try whispering to yourself, "Whatever happens, I remain." Not as a way to give up, but as a reminder that you don't need the storm to stop before you can stand firm. Because in the end, the whatever mindset isn't the cloak of apathy, it's the armor of trust. Trust that you and the flow of life, no matter how winding, are still carrying you exactly where you need to be. 5. The harm of overthinking. There are nights when you just lie there, eyes wide open, and your mind runs like a movie that never stops. You try to find the answer, connect every detail, build every possible scenario. And the more you do it, the heavier and more exhausted you feel. It's like standing beside a crystal clear pond, but constantly stirring the water. Mud rises from the bottom, and soon everything is murky. That's exactly what happens when you get caught in the spiral of overthinking. At first, thinking a lot might seem like caution, like being thoroughly prepared. But in reality, most of those mental loops don't lead to solutions. They just replay old fears, negative scenarios, or stories from the past. The mind has a familiar trick. It convinces you that if you think just a little more, you'll find the answer. But it's like stirring water. To make it clear, the more you stir, the less clarity you have. Wisdom doesn't grow in chaos. It takes root in stillness. Think back to the last time you found the answer to a tough problem. Maybe it came while you were walking, showering, or sitting quietly with your morning coffee. Not when you were dissecting every detail, but when you let your mind relax. Because when there's silence, there's space for wisdom to appear. Overthinking doesn't just take away your clarity, it steals your present moment. You could be somewhere beautiful with people you love, yet your mind is stuck in an old conversation or worrying about a future that hasn't happened. Your body is here, but your mind is elsewhere. And that's how you lose the moment you're living. The tricky part is that overthinking often disguises itself as caring or being responsible. You think you're analyzing a situation, but in truth, you're just spinning in old thought patterns. It's no longer problem solving. It's fear steering the wheel. So, how do you break free? Not by ordering yourself to stop thinking. That only makes you think more. A simple way is to pause and admit, "I'm thinking." But this may not be the truth. Take a deep breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Look around and notice where you are. what you hear, what you feel. You bring yourself back to the present, where the mind can finally rest. When you let your mind be still, it's like letting the pond water settle. The mud sinks, the surface becomes clear again, and you can see everything underneath. This stillness isn't an empty void. It's fertile ground where wisdom can grow. Notice that truly peaceful people aren't those without problems. They're the ones who know when to act and when to stop and listen. They don't let the noise in their head drown out the voice within. Right now, you might be carrying a question without an answer. Instead of forcing yourself to think harder, give yourself a pause. Walk without music. Sit for 5 minutes, just breathing. Watch the sky, hear the wind, feel your body. Don't try to find the answer. Just give your mind a place to land. Because sometimes the answer doesn't come from figuring it out, but from letting it appear. And that only happens when you're still enough to notice it. The more you stir, the murkier the water of the mind becomes. But when you learn to let it settle, you'll see wisdom was always there, just waiting for you to stop stirring so it could shine. 6. From letting go to awakening. The path through yourself. There's something almost mysterious about it. Every time you truly let go of something, a new door quietly opens inside you. You might not notice it right away, but over time, it becomes clear each act of letting go is also an act of awakening. Letting go isn't just about setting down a heavy object you've been carrying. It's about releasing the invisible weights inside your heart: resentment, expectations, the need to control, or even an image of yourself you've clung to for far too long. Sometimes you've held on to it for years, convinced that without it, you'd lose a part of who you are. But the truth is, only when you set it down do you realize how much lighter, wider, and freer you become. In the Buddhist teachings, the Buddha said, clinging is the root of suffering. Clinging means holding on, refusing to let go. You can cling to a person, a result, a story from the past. And when you cling, your heart narrows. It's like gripping a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. The harder you try to force life into your mold, the more you feel it slipping through your fingers. Letting go isn't easy. It requires a rare kind of courage, the courage to face the space that comes after. That space can be frightening, making you think that without what you're holding on to, you'll be empty or lost. But here's the miracle. That space is exactly where new seeds begin to grow. There's a Zen story of a student asking his master, "I want to awaken. Please show me the way." The master simply smiled, filled the student's teacup until it overflowed, and said, "Your mind is like this cup, already full of opinions, fears, and demands. Unless you pour some out, there's no room for wisdom to enter." Letting go is the act of pouring out. Each time you release something that no longer serves your peace, you create space for something new to enter. And often that new isn't what you were expecting, but it's exactly what you need. On the path of awakening, letting go is like climbing a staircase that leads through your own inner landscape. At first, you release the obvious things, a possession, an old habit, a toxic relationship. But as you go deeper, you begin to release subtler attachments, a fixed belief, the urge to control, a carefully constructed self-image. And eventually, you come to see that the deepest thing to let go of is the self, the sense that I am the center, the one in control. As the grip of the self loosens, your heart expands like the open sky. You begin to see yourself and everything around you as deeply connected, without the hard lines between me and them. Some may ask, but if I let go of everything, won't I lose it all? The answer is letting go is not about losing. It's about seeing clearly what is real and what is not, what truly belongs to you. Love, wisdom, inner peace will never disappear when you let go. In fact, it will shine brighter, freed from the dust of greed, anger, and delusion. Have you noticed the lightest, clearest moments of your life often come right after you've let something go? Forgiving someone, accepting a loss, or finally stopping the effort to change something beyond your control. Those are the moments you step closer to true inner freedom. On this journey, don't force yourself to let go of everything in a single day. Start small. A judgment, a worry, an expectation. Each time you set something down, you'll feel your heart grow a little wider. And in that open space, the light of awakening begins to spread. Because in the end, letting go isn't an ending. It's a beginning. The beginning of a life that is deeper, lighter, and more real. Each time you let go, you return to yourself, no longer dragged by the past or bound by the future. Each time you let go, you awaken. And each awakening is a step closer to coming home to the home of unconditional peace. 7. The Buddhist principle of non-attachment. In Buddhism, there's a core principle that once you truly understand, it can make your heart feel so much lighter. It's called non-attachment. Now I know. When some people hear non-attachment, they instantly think it means letting go of everything, giving up relationships, abandoning work, losing passion, and living without love or effort. But that's not what it means at all. Non-attachment doesn't mean you throw away every relationship, job, possession, or thing you hold dear. It simply means you don't tie your happiness and self-worth to the outcome or to your expectations of those things. You can still love deeply, just without trying to possess. You can still work wholeheartedly, just without letting the result define who you are. You can still cherish what you have without falling apart if tomorrow it changes. In the scriptures, the Buddha taught, attachment brings sorrow. Attachment brings fear. Without attachment, there is no sorrow, no fear. Here, attachment doesn't just mean romantic love. It means any kind of clinging, holding too tightly to a person, a situation, a result, or even a story from the past. The tighter you cling, the smaller your world becomes. Imagine holding the string of a kite on a windy day. The kite soars beautifully, but then the wind shifts. If you pull the string too tight, it might snap, and the kite will fall. But if you know when to loosen, when to adjust, you can keep it in the air without exhausting yourself. Non-attachment works the same way. It's the balance between holding and letting go, between loving and accepting. Over the years, I've met many people who came to the temple carrying deep pain. Some had lost a job they'd given decades to. Some had lost a loved one Some had lost a large sum of money. Almost all of them asked me the same question: how do I stop hurting? And the answer, while simple in words, is a lifelong practice. Learn to love without clinging. Hold without chaining yourself. Non-attachment doesn't make you cold or unfeeling. In fact, it makes love purer. When you love, without the need to possess love, becomes a gift, not a trade. When you work without being driven only by recognition or rewards, your work becomes an act of service, not a burden. And when you live without being trapped by expectations, you create space for life's surprises and joys to enter naturally. I'm reminded of a story in the Buddhist texts. A Zen master lived quietly in a small village. One day, he was accused of something very serious. Instead of defending himself with anger, he simply replied, "Is that so?" Months later, the truth came out, and people returned to apologize. Again, he just said, "Is that so?" His words weren't indifference. They were the expression of a mind not chained to praise or blame, to being right or wrong. He continued to live, work, and help others, but his peace was untouched by the shifting winds of opinion. If you look closely at life, you'll see that most of our disappointment, anger, or sadness comes from the gap between reality and our expectations. You expect people to behave a certain way, your career to go exactly as planned, your health to stay perfect. And when life doesn't match that blueprint, you suffer. The principle of non-attachment teaches this plant your seeds with care and effort, but don't bind yourself to the exact image of the harvest. Of course, this isn't easy. The human mind craves certainty, but life is a river, ever changing, never still. If you try to freeze it into your ideal shape, you'll always fight against it. If you can instead flow with it, staying mindful and grateful for each moment, you'll see that every change carries a lesson, and every loss makes room for something new. Non-attachment is not a one-time lesson. It's a lifetime practice. It doesn't just free you from the fear of loss, it allows you to live more fully in every moment. Because when you're no longer thinking, "What if I lose this?" you can finally enjoy it while it's here. And maybe, just maybe, you'll come to see that peace has never depended on how much you can hold on to, but on how gently you can let go. Because, in the end, what truly belongs to you, love, wisdom, compassion, can never be taken away as long as you live with a heart that's free from attachment. 8. Happiness doesn't live in the outcome. It lives in a mind that's free. There's a misunderstanding many of us carry for most of our lives, the belief that happiness will finally arrive once we've achieved what we want. When we have enough money, when our children are successful, when we own a warm, beautiful home, when we find the love we've always dreamed of, then and only then we'll be at peace. But here's what happens. You reach that point, and if there's still restlessness inside you, if there's still fear, insecurity, or a sense of lack, even your greatest achievements won't be enough to sustain lasting happiness. The Buddha once said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." At first, it might sound poetic, even vague. it's actually crystal clear. Happiness isn't a prize waiting for you at the finish line. It's the very substance you carry with you on the journey. If you don't learn how to cultivate it right here, right now, there's no destination in the world that can fill the emptiness inside. Look around. You'll see people who have everything they once wished for. Thriving careers, wealth-loving partners. Yet they're still anxious, tired, or dissatisfied. Why? Because their sense of peace depends entirely on results. Their self-worth is tied to things that can change in an instant. One small disruption and their peace shatters. But when the mind is no longer dependent, happiness becomes free. It doesn't wait for a promotion to show up. It doesn't need you to reach your next goal to stay. It's there in the simple moments, sipping a warm cup of tea, hearing the gentle fall of rain, having an honest conversation with an old friend. Happiness in that state has no reason. It only asks that you be fully present. There's a small story in the Buddhist scriptures about a farmer who loved his herd of cows more than anything. They were his most precious possession. One day, all his cows wandered off and were gone. He was so devastated he couldn't eat or sleep. When he met the Buddha, he cried, "Without my cows, I can't go on." The Buddha simply smiled and said to his disciples, "Friends, we are fortunate, for we have no cows to lose." The lesson is simple yet profound. When your happiness is tied to something outside of you, you'll live in fear of losing it. But when you realize happiness doesn't depend on results or possessions, your heart becomes free. This doesn't mean you stop setting goals or abandon your dreams. You can still work hard, still strive, but you don't suspend your happiness in some distant future. You nourish contentment in each step, so every day has value, not just as a means to get somewhere else. Think about your own life. Have there been times when you finally got what you wanted, but the joy lasted only a few days before you were chasing the next goal? If so, you've seen how life can turn into an endless chain of, "When I have this, I'll be happy." But if your peace still depends on conditions, that when may never arrive. On the other hand, if your mind is trained to find fullness even when things aren't perfect, then any moment can hold happiness. Like someone who can savor a simple meal with gratitude, finding joy not in luxury, but in appreciation. The Buddha taught about impermanence, that everything changes. Success and failure, gain and loss. They're all just waves on the ocean. If your mind rises and falls with every wave, your happiness will come and go. But if your mind becomes like the ocean itself, deep, still, vast, no wave can take away your peace. True happiness, then, isn't about reaching a certain result. It's about living in a state where your peace no longer hangs on results at all. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop clinging so tightly, success and goodness often flow more easily, because fear and pressure no longer block the way. And perhaps the most important realization of all is this: you are worthy of happiness right now. You don't have to wait for anything to change. Happiness isn't the trophy at the end of the road. It's the breath you're taking at this very moment, the quiet you can touch within your own heart. When the mind is free, happiness becomes steady, and no outcome in the world can take it from you. 9. Let go of the need for approval. There's a truth many people don't realize until halfway through life. You don't need anyone's applause to know you are enough. But before we learn that most of us spend years, sometimes decades, running an invisible race, we run to be noticed. We run to be praised. We run to prove our worth. From the time we were children, we were taught that praise was a reward and criticism was punishment. We learned to please our teachers, our parents, our friends. Then as adults, we continued trying to please bosses, colleagues, family members, and even strangers on social media. A quiet voice inside keeps asking, am I doing well enough? Do they like me? Do they approve of me? The problem is, other people's approval is like a glass vase, beautiful but fragile. Today, they might sing your praises, but tomorrow, one small mistake could shatter it. And if your sense of self-worth is locked inside that vase, you'll always live in fear of losing it. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, the wise remain unmoved by praise or blame, like a mountain unshaken by the wind. If you let praise lift you too high, you also give blame the power to pull you down. They're both just winds blowing in opposite directions. If your peace depends on which way the wind blows, you'll forever be swept away. Letting go of the need for recognition doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means knowing your worth without needing anyone else to stamp it with approval. You can still receive praise with gratitude and listen to feedback with openness, but you no longer let either define who you are. Think of a mountain. Whether someone stands at its base and says, "This mountain is magnificent," or "This mountain is nothing special," its essence doesn't change. It remains steady, grounded, and itself. We are the same when we are solid inside praise and criticism, skim the surface but never touch the core. I once met a woman in her 60s. She had worked tirelessly her whole life, raised her children, well sacrificed endlessly for her family's happiness. Yet she told me the heaviest burden wasn't the labor. It was the feeling of never being fully acknowledged. She waited years for a simple thank you, a moment of recognition from her husband or children. It never came. Only when her health began to fail did she realize, if your happiness depends on someone else's recognition, you've locked it in their hands. The Buddha once advised his disciples, be a lamp unto yourself. In other words, light your own path, approve of your own journey. When you know you're moving in the right direction, you don't need a cheering crowd on either side. Letting go of the need for recognition is also a form of healing. Often, that need is rooted in old wounds, perhaps from childhood, when we felt we had to achieve something to deserve love. But the truth is, your worth doesn't come from achievements or acceptance. It comes from living with kindness, from learning and loving, from growing as a human being. You'll feel a profound lightness when you stop performing to please others. When you no longer embellish your story just to earn compliments. When you can say no to what isn't right for you, even if it costs you temporary praise. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing approval, you often become more respected and magnetic. People sense authenticity. They trust you because your actions aren't about impressing them. They're about living your truth. So ask yourself, if no one clapped, would I still do this? If no one praised me, would I still live this way? If your answer is yes, you've touched freedom. Because in the end, the loudest applause doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from your own heart, when you know you've lived true to what matters most. And in that moment, you'll realize you've been enough all along. 10. Learning not to fix everything. There's a habit many of us carry for most of our lives, and it drains us far more than we realize. It's the habit of always trying to fix everything. A broken relationship. We rush to repair it. A loved one feeling down. We do everything to pull them out of it. A situation not going as planned. We throw ourselves in, determined to turn it around. It sounds noble because it comes from a place of wanting to help. But taken too far, it becomes a heavy burden on both the heart and the body. In Buddhist teaching, the Buddha often reminded us each person must walk their own path to awakening. The Buddhas only point the way, they cannot walk it for anyone. That means no matter how deeply you care for someone, you cannot live their lessons for them. You cannot take away the experiences they must go through in order to grow. Some things aren't broken in a negative sense, they're simply in the process of transforming. A friend going through a divorce isn't a damaged person you need to fix. They are someone moving through the winter season of their life. A winter that may be necessary to plant the seeds for spring. If you pull them out of the cold too soon, you might unintentionally interrupt the very process that will help them bloom. Many people have come to the temple telling me they feel exhausted from constantly worrying, organizing, and solving problems for everyone around them, as if the world will fall apart if they don't hold it together. But when you look deeper, that helping often hides a fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of losing control, fear of watching someone you love suffer. Sometimes our need to fix isn't just for them, it's to soothe our own discomfort. From the lens of Buddhist wisdom, there's a liberating truth. The world doesn't need you to glue every piece back together. What we call broken is often just the temporary form of something being remade. Think of a cocoon. It looks sealed still, and perhaps even lifeless, but inside a butterfly is forming. If you rush to tear it open to rescue it, you'll cripple its wings before they ever get a chance to fly. The most valuable thing you can sometimes offer is not a solution, but your presence. Sitting with someone in pain without rushing to give advice. Staying beside someone in anger without trying to extinguish their feelings. Listening without jumping in to respond. Your presence creates a safe space where they can see themselves clearly, feel their own emotions, and find their own way forward. There's a verse in the Anguttara Nikaya. The wise do not try to remove every thorn from the path, but learn to wear shoes. The shoes here are mindfulness and compassion. When you wear them, you can walk a thorny road without having to clear every thorn for the entire world. Letting go of the need to fix doesn't mean abandoning people. It means respecting their journey and honoring your own limits. You can still reach out when they truly need you, but you don't carry every weight on your back. You still care, but you don't deplete yourself over things beyond your control. And sometimes the greatest gift is silent understanding. Because a person in pain doesn't always need an answer. They need a space where they can be themselves, breathe, and settle their heart. By simply being fully present, you can be that safe place. If you often felt like you must always be the fixer, ask yourself, does this really need fixing right now? Or does it just need to be seen, felt, and given time to unfold on its own? You might be surprised to find that when you step back, many things naturally find their place without your constant intervention. In the end, life does not ask you to be the repairer of all things. Life invites you to love in the right way, and sometimes loving in the right way means sitting down, staying quiet, and simply being there. 11. When caring too much starts to suffocate you. There's a subtle truth. Many people don't realize sometimes we care too much, not because of love, but because of fear. It might sound strange, but if you look closely, you'll see it happens all the time. Have you ever been in a relationship where you constantly checked in, always wanted to know where they were, what they were doing, what they were thinking? You told yourself it was love, but deep down, it was the fear of losing them. Or maybe you worried about your children so much that you never let them make their own choices because you were afraid they might fail. Or perhaps you took on every task at work, afraid that if you didn't, everything would fall apart. In Buddhist teaching, the Buddha made a clear distinction between compassion and attachment. Compassion is the wish for someone else's happiness, even if it brings you no personal benefit. Attachment, however, is a form of clinging. You want them to be happy, but in the way you believe is right. And beneath it is often fear that if things don't go as you want, you'll suffer. Caring too much can be like holding a young sapling too tightly because you think if you let go, it will break. But the tighter you hold, the more you risk breaking it yourself. A seed grows best when it's placed in the earth and given the space to find its own way toward the light. Love needs space to breathe. I once met a mother who came to the temple worried that her 30-year-old son was passive and unwilling to live independently. When I asked more, I learned that ever since he was a child, she had never let him go, without anything, not even the tasks he could have done himself. She told me, "He's so clumsy, I just don't feel safe letting him do it." But that very not feeling safe had unintentionally taken away his chance to learn how to stand on his own. True care supports, it doesn't control. But fear often blurs that line. We rush in to fix things because we're afraid they'll suffer. We do things for them because we're afraid they'll fail. We hold on tightly because we're afraid they'll leave. Yet every one of those actions, no matter how well-intentioned, sends a quiet message. I don't believe you can handle this on your own. That not only makes the other person feel suffocated, it wears you out too. The Buddha once taught love. Like the clouds, love, like the wind, touch, nourish, and then let go into freedom. If your love binds someone, it's no longer pure love. It becomes a rope, and both of you end up trapped. You might try asking yourself, if I stop doing this, what am I afraid will happen? The answer can reveal whether you're acting from love or from fear. When it's love, you feel trust that they can learn, grow, and get back up even after falling. When it's fear, you feel the need to control, to step in to manage every outcome. Overcaring also makes you forget yourself. You ignore your own needs to look after others until you're drained. You call it sacrifice, but the truth is, when you're empty, the love you give loses its warmth and clarity. In meditation, there's a simple truth. If you want to light another's lamp, your own must have oil. You can't keep the flame alive if your own heart is being suffocated by worry and control. So maybe it's time to rethink the way you care. Instead of always doing for them, try doing with them, or simply being with them. Instead of trying to prevent every mistake, be ready to stand by them when they need a hand to get up. Love isn't about stopping every storm. It's about giving them a coat when the rain comes and letting them walk their own path through the wet streets. And don't forget, you also deserve care from yourself. When you take good care of your own well-being, you can give others a love that's steady and fearless. In the end, caring isn't about holding on tight. It's about letting both of you breathe. When you learn to step back and trust more, you'll feel lighter. And here's the beautiful part, that space you give often makes love deeper and more enduring than you ever imagined. 12. Surrender, the superpower you didn't know you had. There's a word that makes many people instantly feel weak the moment they hear it: surrender. In everyday life, we're taught that surrender means giving up, losing, not being strong enough to keep going. But in Buddhist wisdom, surrender, or letting go, is actually a quiet strength, even a kind of superpower. Think of a small boat paddling desperately against a raging current. The harder it rows, the more exhausted it becomes, even spinning in circles. But only when the rower sets down the oars and lets the current carry the boat does it drift into calm waters. Letting go isn't losing. It's realizing your strength doesn't come from fighting everything, but from moving in harmony with it. The Buddha taught, all suffering comes from attachment. And attachment is just another way of resisting the natural flow of life. When things don't go our way, we resist. We struggle. We try to force change at any cost, even when it's beyond our control. We cling to results, to an image of ourselves, to the idea that life must go exactly according to plan. But the tighter we hold on, the more tension we create, and the further we drift from peace. Surrender in the Buddhist sense is the courage to admit, some things are not within my control. This isn't weakness. It's the wisdom of knowing where your influence ends and where acceptance must begin. I've met many people who came to the temple when life was falling apart. They'd lost loved ones, jobs, or faith. They would ask Master, "What should I do to get through this?" Sometimes my answer surprised them. Stop fighting what is happening. Surrender. And they'd respond, "But if I surrender, isn't that the same as giving up?" I would smile and say no. Surrender isn't lying down in defeat. It's shifting from resistance to acceptance, so your mind can be still enough to see the way forward. When you surrender, you stop wasting your energy trying to control the waves. Instead, you learn to ride them. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" The second question opens wisdom. The first one only deepens the wound. A Zen master once said, When you let go, life will catch you. Letting go here doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means releasing the illusion that you can control everything. And strangely, when you do this, you often find yourself lighter, clearer, and even more effective in action. Think of bamboo in a storm. It doesn't try to remain rigid, nor does it fight the wind. It bends, sways with the gusts, and when the storm passes, it's still standing. The bamboo doesn't lose its strength by yielding. Its flexibility is the reason it survives, while stiffer trees may break. In life, we all face storms. Illness, loss, unwanted change. True strength isn't always about standing firm against them. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to loosen your grip so you aren't swept away. If you're struggling right now, ask yourself, does this truly require my control? Or am I holding on just because I'm afraid to let go? If the answer leans toward fear, maybe it's time to try releasing it. Not to give up, but to give yourself the chance to see more clearly what truly matters. Surrender frees you from the exhausting burden of having to master every outcome. It creates space to focus on what you can do while peacefully accepting what you cannot. From that place, your choices are no longer driven by anxiety or anger, but by clarity and calm. Because in the end, surrender isn't weakness. It's the strength of someone who understands that sometimes the only way forward is to take your hands off the oars and let the current carry you exactly where you need to go. And in that moment, you realize letting go is not losing. It's how you keep your peace, your wisdom, and yourself. 13. Letting go is not weakness, it's wisdom. There's a common misunderstanding that letting go is something only the weak do, that it's for those who don't have the strength to keep fighting. But in the light of Buddhist wisdom, letting go is actually a profound form of intelligence. It's not abandoning life. It's the ability to see the whole picture instead of staring at just one small point. When you cling tightly to something, your vision narrows. It's like holding a stone right up to your face. The closer you press it, the more it blocks your view, until all you see is that stone and everything else fades away. Only when you set it down can you see the sky, the fields, and the road ahead. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, whoever is free from greed, anger, and delusion is like a bird in the sky, leaving no trace to bind them. Clinging is a kind of bondage, and it doesn't just tie you to the thing you hold, it ties down your own mind. Letting go is the key that unlocks the chain. Think of someone climbing a mountain. If they grip a dead branch out of fear, they can't keep moving upward. To go higher, they have to release that branch and reach for a stronger hold. Letting go doesn't mean falling. It means freeing your hands so you can climb. In life, we often hold on to things, not because they still serve us, but because we fear the emptiness that might come if we release them. A relationship that's lost its respect, a job that no longer gives meaning, or an outdated self-image. We tell ourselves that letting go means losing. But strangely, when you finally set it down, new space opens. And in that space, something better can enter. There's a Zen story. A monk walking along the road saw a man carrying a heavy sack on his back. The man's face was twisted in discomfort, sweat pouring down. The monk asked, "Why not set the sack down and rest?" The man replied, "If I put it down, I'm afraid I won't have the strength to lift it again." The monk smiled. If you keep carrying it like this, you won't have the strength to keep going. This is the reality for many of us, exhausted by the weight we carry, yet afraid to let it go. Letting go takes courage, but this courage isn't recklessness. It's the wisdom to know what's worth holding and what's time to release. That wisdom widens your heart, freeing it from the tight confines of my way or my story. When you stop clinging, you start to see how everything is interconnected, how every change has its purpose, and how peace doesn't depend on controlling every piece of the puzzle. And it's only when you loosen your grip that you can see the whole landscape. You're no longer trapped in the viewpoint of the one caught in the drama. You gain the perspective of a calm observer, steady and clear, less pulled around by emotion. From that space, the choices you make are lighter, truer, and more in harmony with the bigger picture. Some might ask, but if I let go of everything, won't I lose everything? The answer is no. Letting go doesn't make you lose what's truly yours. In fact, it helps you keep the most precious thing of all, your inner peace. Because everything outside of you changes money status, relationships, even this body. Only a peaceful mind can remain as a stable foundation. Learning to let go is also learning to trust that life will take you where you need to be, even if the path doesn't look the way you imagined. It's like flying a kite. You don't control every gust of wind, but you still hold the string, letting the kite soar high without losing its direction. In the end, letting go isn't a negative act. It's a step into maturity, a shift from a narrow view to a broader one, from clinging to freedom. And it's the moment you can finally see the full picture of your life, clear open and no longer clouded by fear or old habits. Because sometimes the only thing standing between you and the road ahead is the hand that's still holding tight. And the wisdom of letting go is the courage to open that hand. 14. Let the moment lead. One of the most common mistakes we make is believing that happiness and peace only come when we have everything under control. So we plan every step, calculate every outcome, predict every risk. But life doesn't run according to our blueprints. It's like a river. You can build dams, carve canals, but you can't command the water to flow exactly as you wish forever. In the Buddhist teaching on impermanence, everything is always changing. If you cling too tightly to a single direction, you'll exhaust yourself because the flow of life is far wider than what you can see right now. Letting the moment lead doesn't mean drifting aimlessly. It means trusting the natural wisdom of the river, believing that if your mind is still enough, you'll realize it's already carrying you exactly where you need to go. Picture yourself by the river at dawn. The water moves, sunlight shimmers on its surface. You could jump in and fight the current, swim hard against it, or you could lie back and let it carry you. And when you stop resisting, you see that the river was never trying to drown you. It was guiding you through necessary bends to bring you back to the source. In Zen, there's a saying, "The wise do not chase the past or dream of the future. They live fully in the present, because the present is the only place life truly happens." When you let the moment lead, you stop forcing life to match your script, and you start listening to what it's quietly trying to tell you. Sometimes, what looks like a detour is actually the shortest road to growth. A failure, a breakup, a missed opportunity. Up close, they seem like dead ends, but once you pass through, you realize they were the turns that led you to a gentler shore. If you try to control everything, you might never discover the wide field waiting beyond the curve. Even the Buddha's awakening beneath the Bodhi tree is proof of this truth. He didn't try to force enlightenment to come faster. He sat, breathed, and was fully present with each moment, letting wisdom unfold like a lotus in its own time. Awakening isn't the result of pushing. It's the fruit of surrendering and moving in rhythm with the flow of life. Look back and you'll see many of life's most beautiful moments weren't planned. A chance meeting that shifted your entire path. A brief conversation that unlocked an answer you'd been searching for years. An unexpected journey that became a turning point. These moments came when you weren't over-controlling, but allowing life to offer what it had prepared for you. The key is to keep your mind open and flexible, like a skilled rower who doesn't just row harder, but knows when to let the water carry them and when to steer to avoid the rocks. That skill only comes when you trust both the river and yourself. Letting the moment lead will sometimes feel unsettling because you don't know exactly where you're going. But instead of fearing it, see it as part of the journey. Just as night is necessary to recognize the light, uncertainty is necessary to learn trust and surrender. And after living this way for a while, you'll discover something miraculous. What is truly meant for you will always find its way to you. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to force it. You just need to be here listening and walking in step with the present. Because sometimes the shortest path back to your source is to stop trying to lead the river and let the river lead you. 15. You can't control everything, but you can be still. There's a truth we all have to face, sooner or later. You can't control everything. No matter how carefully you plan, no matter how thoroughly you prepare, life will always bring the unexpected. A sudden storm, bad news in the middle of the night, a change that turns all your plans to dust. And that's not your fault. That's simply the nature of life. In the Buddha's teaching on impermanence, he reminds us that everything is in a constant state of change. Nothing is fixed. The only thing you truly have any control over is how you show up in this moment and how you respond to it. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to manage every shift, learn to rest in presence, to live fully with what is even when it's not what you wanted. Imagine sitting by the ocean. The waves might be calm, or they might be fierce. You can't command the sea to stay still or to rise up, but you can choose to sit quietly to watch and to breathe. Stillness doesn't make the waves disappear, but it allows you to stand steady when they crash. In meditation, the Buddha taught, when the mind is at peace, the world is at peace. This doesn't mean that the moment your mind becomes calm, the outside world turns into sunshine and flowers. It means that when your mind is steady enough, you're no longer swept away by every change outside you. A criticism doesn't keep you awake at night. A loss doesn't break you completely. You learn to stay with reality, even when reality is uncomfortable. Many people think happiness comes from keeping everything under control. A smooth career, obedient children, stable health, harmony with everyone around. But that's a fragile illusion. One small shift and the whole thing can collapse. Resting in presence is different. It doesn't depend on outside conditions. It's like a candle burning in a still, sheltered space, untouched by the wind. Once someone asked the Buddha, "How can I not fear the things I cannot change?" He replied, "Do not try to change the ocean. Learn to sail." Simple words, but deeply wise. Sailing means living in harmony with the current, knowing when to go with it, when to adjust your direction, but never wasting all your strength fighting the nature of the water. When you rest in presence, you start to see the truth of things more clearly. Instead of reacting instantly, you give yourself a pause. That pause is like a still lake. When the water is calm, you can see the bottom. But if you keep stirring it with worry judgment or the urge to fix everything, it will stay murky and you won't see anything clearly. Resting in presence is not passive. It's an active choice to be here, to be aware, rather than reacting blindly. In this state, you stop living with the fear that something bad might happen and start living with the trust that whatever happens, I can remain steady. And here's the miracle. When you stop trying to control everything, you begin to see how often life naturally returns to balance. A relationship, when you stop trying to reshape the other person, may slowly become more harmonious. A work problem, when you stop panicking, may reveal solutions you couldn't see before. Just like when you relax your body on water, it naturally floats, because that's what it's built to do. Life isn't asking you to control every detail. It's inviting you to be present, to observe, and to walk with a steady heart. You don't have to quiet every wave. You only have to learn to stand firm among them. Because in the end, peace isn't when the sea is calm. It's when your heart stays calm, even as the sea begins to roar. 16. Let the unknown become your place of practice. There is a landscape most of us are afraid to step into. A place with no signposts, no familiar trails, no comforting promise that everything will be okay right away. It's the land of the unknown, where things feel uncertain, unclear, and there's nothing solid to hold on to. Most people will do almost anything to avoid this place. We crave certainty. We want to know next week's plans, the outcome of a relationship, or what will happen if we choose one path over another. The not knowing makes us uneasy. It rattles the ego. And the ego does not like losing its sense of control. But in Buddhism, that very place, what we might call groundlessness, is where some of the deepest practice happens. The Buddha once taught, when the mind finds no foothold, it finds freedom. At first, it sounds like a paradox, but if you sit with it, you'll see how true it is. The ego is like a mountain climber who always wants a rock to grip. When there's nothing to grab onto, it panics. Yet in that very moment, if the climber can relax, open their eyes, and simply look around, they might realize they are standing in the middle of a vast, breathtaking view, and that they don't need to cling to survive. In life, when we enter uncertain seasons, a job with no clear future, a relationship that hasn't taken shape, a plan put on hold, we tend to rush to fill the space with answers. But that hurry often makes us miss the most valuable thing, the chance to set our ego down. The unknown teaches humility. It reminds us that no matter how wise we think we are, the world will always be bigger than our understanding. It invites us to listen more, observe more, and accept that some questions simply won't have an immediate answer. There's an old saying, only an empty cup can be filled with new tea. When our mind is emptied of the need for certainty, there is space for fresh wisdom to pour in. If you always have to know, you're just repeating the same old patterns. But when you allow yourself to not know, you open the door for something new to emerge. Many Zen masters describe the unknown as a fog-covered sea. You can't see the shore. You don't know what the next wave will be like. If you panic, you'll row frantically and exhaust yourself. But if you breathe, keep your rhythm, and let the boat move with the current, you'll notice you're still moving. And with every shift in the mist, a new view appears. In meditation, we are encouraged to sit with uncertainty. No need to rush into a decision. No need to force the mind to solve the puzzle. Just sit, breathe, and observe the restlessness, the fear, or the anticipation that arises. Over time, you'll see, uncertainty isn't as frightening as it seemed. It's simply another state, and it too will change. When you truly grow familiar with the unknown, you'll begin to find a new kind of strength. With nothing to cling to, the ego has nowhere to stand. And when the ego softens the anxiety, the need to prove yourself, the endless battles of right and wrong, they dissolve too. What's left is pure presence, light and unburdened. And perhaps that is the real freedom. Not the freedom that comes when everything is clear, but the freedom that exists in the middle of the fog, when you know you can still walk, still breathe, and still smile, even without seeing the shore. Because in the end, life isn't a journey of controlling every step. It's a journey of learning to trust the path, even when it hasn't yet revealed itself. 17. Happiness is letting go of the pressure to be someone else. There's an invisible weight that almost all of us have carried at some point, the pressure to be somebody. From the time we were children, we've heard phrases like, "You have to do well in school," "You need to be successful," "You should be better, stronger, smarter." Over time, those voices quietly became the ones in our own heads, pushing us to keep running down a road with no finish line. We grow up holding on to this image of an ideal version of ourselves, smarter, richer, more attractive, more accomplished. But strangely, the harder we try to reach that image, the further we drift from our true selves. Deep down, we know we're wearing a mask to be accepted, to be loved, or simply to avoid being left behind. In Buddhism, there is a gentle but profound truth. Be an island unto yourself. The Buddha didn't teach us to become someone else. He taught us to return to our original nature, the clear mind, innate wisdom, and compassion already within us. Happiness doesn't come from becoming an upgraded version of ourselves. It comes from letting go of the need to compare, to compete, and to chase an image, whether it's one we created or one society handed to us. Ask yourself, how many times in your life have you felt exhausted just from trying to live up to someone else's standards? How many times have you hidden your sadness just to appear strong? How many times have you said yes to something you didn't want, just to maintain a good image in someone's eyes? A lotus never tries to become a rose, or a daisy in order to be loved. It simply blooms as it is, rising pure and beautiful from the mud. People are the same. When we live true to our nature, we naturally radiate without force. Some fear that if they let go of the pressure to be someone, they'll become lazy, or complacent. But that's not the truth. Letting go doesn't mean rejecting growth. It means rejecting growth based on comparison and pressure. When we're no longer bound by the image of who we must become, we create space to explore, to learn, and to grow in a way that feels natural, like a tree reaching toward the sun, not because it's told to, but because that's the nature of life. In one teaching, the Buddha spoke of anatta non-self, the freedom from clinging to a fixed identity. When we understand this, the pressure to be someone begins to dissolve. We realize we don't need to play any role to have worth. Our value isn't measured by titles, achievements, or the number of people who praise us. It lies in our presence, our capacity to love, and our ability to live fully in each moment. Imagine standing beside a river. If you spend your energy trying to be the most beautiful drop of water, you'll be stuck in constant comparison, never seeing your own natural beauty. But if you simply flow with the river, letting the sunlight reflect off you in its own way, you'll see that you've been radiant all along without trying. There's a saying I love. When you were born, you were already enough. The moment you try to be someone else, you lose yourself. Happiness isn't a prize waiting at the end of a long road of self-improvement to please everyone else. It's a gift you already hold the moment you pause, breathe, and accept yourself as you are. If today you find yourself exhausted from carrying the weight of becoming that ideal version of you, give yourself permission to soften. Sit quietly, feel your breath, and remember, you have nothing to prove to anyone. You are already a unique, irreplaceable part of this world, and that is enough. Because true happiness begins the moment you let go of the pressure to become and simply allow yourself to be. 18. When you stop chasing life begins to touch you. There's a paradox many people only realize after they've grown tired from the endless search. The harder you chase happiness, peace, or meaning, the further they seem to drift away. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. In Buddhism, the Buddha spoke of a gentle yet profound truth. When your mind stops chasing, everything you've been seeking will naturally find its way to you. It's not advice to sit still and do nothing. It's a reminder that sometimes releasing the urge to control and possess creates space for life itself to reach you. Think about the times you've walked through a park with no particular plan. You weren't searching for beauty, yet a sudden ray of sunlight through the leaves stopped you in your tracks. You weren't looking for connection yet. A stranger's smile warmed your heart. In those moments, you weren't seeking life. Life was seeking you. Many people live their entire lives as hunters chasing success, love, approval. They believe, when I achieve this, I'll be happy. Yet even when they get it, they soon move on to the next goal, as if joy were only a fleeting spark. True happiness isn't somewhere in the future. It's in the moment you stop, open your heart, and let life touch you. The Buddha taught about anatta non-self and anicca impermanence. When you see that everything changes, you stop clinging to a fixed idea of what you must have. You begin to realize that happiness isn't built through constant control. It arises naturally when your mind is spacious and still enough to recognize it. Imagine sitting beside a river. If you wade in and try to block the current to find the clearest water, you'll only stir up the silt. But if you wait quietly, letting the water settle, the riverbed reveals itself. Life works the same way. The less you force it, the more its beauty reveals itself. There's a Zen story of a young monk seeking enlightenment. He traveled far, studied with many masters, yet still felt incomplete. One day, as he sipped tea, a drop of hot tea fell on his hand, jolting him into the present. In that instant, he realized he had always been in the middle of life. He had just never truly touched it. You might have lived through moments like this when you stopped searching for love, a deep relationship appeared. When you let go of your obsession with success, you worked better, and opportunities came to you. When you stopped pressuring yourself to be happy right now, joy arose from simple things. Birdsong, the smell of morning coffee, the warmth of a loved one's hug. This doesn't mean abandoning your dreams or giving up on action. It means walking through life not as a hunter, but as a companion to it, acting from inner fullness, not inner lack. And that's when all good things can bloom naturally. If today you feel worn out from chasing a goal, a person, or a feeling, try pausing. Let your breath lead the way. Give your heart the chance to hear life's quiet whisper. You may realize that everything you've been searching for has been searching for you too. Because true happiness isn't the prize for the fastest runner. It's the gift to the one who knows how to stop and let life touch them. 19. No map. Become the explorer. There's a truth that everyone on a deep spiritual journey discovers sooner or later. No one hands you a map. There's no step-by-step guide, no neatly drawn route, no big sign saying this is the right way. You have to walk it yourself, and it's your own footsteps that will draw the path. In everyday life, we're used to clear directions, a GPS to get to a location, a recipe to cook a dish, a detailed plan to finish a project. But the inner journey is nothing like that. It's more like crossing an untouched wilderness. You can hear the stories of those who've gone before you. You can learn from their experience. But eventually, you realize the canopy above you, the stream beside you, and the footprints on the ground. They're all uniquely yours. The Buddha said, he was only a guide. The path to liberation cannot be handed to you as a ready-made gift. He taught, I show you the way, but you must walk it yourself. Awakening isn't a single destination. That's the same for everyone. It's a deeply personal, one-of-a-kind discovery. I recall an old story of a young monk who came to a famous Zen master eager to learn the secret of enlightenment. After days of listening and taking notes, the monk asked, "Master, will my path look exactly like yours?" The master smiled. "If you walk my path, you'll only ever see my back. But if you walk your own, you'll see the whole sky." A spiritual path is not about becoming someone's copy. It's about returning to yourself. And returning to yourself means stepping into uncharted territory. This can feel frightening because we humans love certainty. We want to know exactly what's waiting at the end of the road. But on this journey, every destination is a new, unpredictable discovery. It's in that not knowing where wisdom grows. Without a map, you listen more closely to the wind, to your own footsteps, to the beating of your heart. You start noticing the smallest signals from life. A chance encounter, a sentence that wakes you up, or even a setback that forces you to pause. These become your milestones, not on paper, but in your soul. In the Buddha's teaching on impermanence, he reminds us that everything changes. Clinging to a fixed plan only creates suffering. Like a river, the spiritual path doesn't flow in a straight line. It winds sometimes gently, sometimes in fierce currents. If you only search for the straight stretch to move faster, you'll miss the beauty along the banks. And more importantly, you won't learn how to steer when the water shifts. You might ask, without a map, how do I know I'm going the right way? The answer isn't in an external signpost. It's in the feeling inside you. When you're on the right path, there's a sense of openness, even in challenge. When you're off course, there's a heaviness, even if the road feels safe. Sometimes you'll get lost, and that's not failure. In Zen, they say, getting lost is part of the path. Each time you lose your way, you learn more about yourself, your fears, your hopes, the things you thought mattered but don't. Those bends in the road are what shape your mind so you can keep going with strength. If today you're at a crossroads, unsure which way to turn, remember not having a map is also a gift. It forces you to be fully present with each step. You can't walk on autopilot. You have to walk with awareness. And step by step, breath by breath, your path will reveal itself, not because someone drew it, but because you are drawing it. And perhaps one day, when you look back, you'll realize it was the uncharted stretch, the road with no map, that was the most beautiful part of the journey. 20. Do less. Be more present. Have you ever noticed that the most peaceful, profound moments in life often come when we're not straining to capture them? Like a lotus blooming in the stillness of a quiet pond, it doesn't struggle to unfold. It doesn't plan out the exact day it will bloom. It doesn't compare itself to other flowers. It simply stands there in stillness, opening itself to the light and warmth. And then, at just the right moment, the petals naturally reveal themselves. In our modern world, we're constantly told to do more, achieve more, move faster, so we won't be left behind. But have you ever wondered? Maybe sometimes it's in doing less and being more present that we actually touch life most deeply. The Buddha once said, "When the mind rests in the present, everything you seek will find you." This doesn't mean abandoning all responsibilities or living passively. It means that instead of endlessly racing ahead, we learn to pause long enough to realize we're already standing in the middle of what we've been searching for. I'm reminded of a story where a student asked a Zen master, "Master, what must I do to awaken?" The master looked at him and replied, "Less." The student was puzzled. "Less, but I've already given up so much." The master smiled and said, "Then, less than that." That teaching may sound simple, but it carries one of life's greatest secrets. When we strip away the layers of wanting, the pressures to become a better version of ourselves by someone else's standard, we begin to touch an inner space that is empty yet full of peace. Like a pond that settles after being disturbed, the water reflects the sky most clearly when it's still. When we stop chasing after goals that aren't truly necessary, our mind opens enough to see what really matters. And often it's not found in doing more, but in staying fully with what's here. In the Buddha's teaching on mindfulness, he reminds us every breath, Every step, every glance, if lived fully, becomes a doorway into peace. No extra conditions required. This is how a lotus grows. It doesn't try to change the wind or the sun. It simply absorbs fully whatever comes. Maybe you've been living at such a fast pace that you've forgotten this truth. The value of life isn't measured by how many things you get done, but by the depth of your presence in each moment. Doing less doesn't mean living carelessly. It means choosing with intention, saving your energy for what truly matters, so that everything you do has soul, and every word you speak rises from a place of stillness within. And here's the beautiful part. When you start living this way, life begins to bloom on its own, just like that lotus. Opportunities, meaningful connections, moments of peace. They come to you without you having to chase them. You no longer struggle to earn happiness because you realize it's been sitting beside you all along, waiting for you to notice. So, if today you're feeling exhausted from trying too hard, try stopping. Take a deep breath. Sit still, like a lotus in the pond. Let in the light, let in the stillness, and allow things to unfold in their own rhythm. You might be surprised to see life offering you gifts you were once too busy to notice. Because in the end, slowing down doesn't take anything away from you. It only allows you to see more clearly all that you already have. And perhaps, in that moment of doing nothing, you'll actually do the most important thing of all: come closer to yourself. If today's message has touched something in your heart, I invite you to continue this journey with us. Subscribe to Buddhism Seeds. Give this video a like. Share it with someone who might also need a quiet space for their soul. And leave a comment about what helps you feel truly present in your life. I would be honored to read your stories, because who knows, your story might just be the lotus blooming in someone else's mind.